welcome to the Cairngorms National Park. We're here and we're going to teach you how you can do an added value unit based on various features. Cairngorms is renowned for being glaciated, and you can see today we've got snow on the high ground. You can see we've got different land uses. We've got skiing. You might be able to see the ski centre in the background with the lifts. And lots of people come to the national park. They come to see the wildlife. They come to see the scenery. They come to see the other tourists. We've got a tourist car park behind us. But what can we do in the Cairngorms? What can we do in the show? We've introduced you to the Cairngorms, and we need to talk a little bit about the AVU. It's something that you need to do and you need to take ownership over. But before we do that, we're going to guide you through the whole process. It's not as daunting as it sounds. You need to find a topic to start with, and then we need to build on your topic, find some questions, maybe a hypothesis, which is just a posh word for saying you need to find a true or false statement. Just some ideas to develop. You then need to gather the info. We need to get it from the field. You could sit at the computer and do a desk-based, but today we're going to be talking to you about a field-based study, one where we can get the information from what's around us. Okay, from there we need to process the data that we capture, and we'll talk to you how we can do that, presenting it in different ways and analysing that data. And presenting, we can do things like graphs, but we'll talk about those later on, and to finally come up with some conclusions. And that is going to be supported by us, but it's for you to do. Kinds of topics we could do. We can look at maps to find out where and types of things we could do. They can give us lots of information. And also, the stuff that you've done in the course already is another source of information, things you could follow up on. And we want you to go with something that you're interested in, you're passionate about. Okay, so things we could do. We could look at the type of terrain we're in. What kind of themes could we have?
Glaciated landscapes. Tourism.
And the theme that we're going to expand is a river study. Okay, after looking at a map, we found a river, and we are currently standing at the middle course of the River Luighnigg in the Cairngorms.
Okay, so if we're doing a river study, how can we expand this into a question to answer in our added value unit?
Okay, so for our AVU, we can take the more general question, how does a river change downstream? And to do this, we can focus on different sources of information. We can look at width.
So, we're measuring the width. Blue, how wide's our river?
15.47!
15.47! Well, what's the unit?
Meters!
Oh, we're in metres.
Another data that you can gather as part of the river study is velocity.
If you're lucky, your school might have something called a flow meter, which measures the velocity for you. But if you don't have one, that's fine, you can still do it. We've measured the distance from the rocks there is point A to the rock there is point B, and it's 10.3 metres. We're now going to throw a stick in and see how long it takes to get to the other side. You can then use your speed, distance, time rules to work out the velocity. Go! How long did that take, Angus?
Well, we've gauged it and it's 4 seconds.
4 seconds.
Okay, so when you're doing a study, one of the requirements for the AVU is that you have more than one piece of data. So if we've measured a river, we also need to find some other stuff out. So we're going to talk to you about some examples of other things you could do in a river study. So you might be wondering what I've got. I've got some sediment from the river, so stones, sand. I've gone in, picked some from the side of the river and a bit further in. You could measure the dimensions of rocks and you could record them, or you could look at charts and decide how rounded they are, and there's comparison charts for you to decide if they're angular, subangular, round, and there's a variety of other things we could look at. So I'll pass you over to my next colleague.
Cheers, Angus! So, also in the river, we could look at depth. We could look at how the depth varies across the width of the river, or we could look at how the depth varies across the course of the river. Over to you, Kimberly.
Okay, thanks, Lou. Okay, so we've gathered all our information from the middle course of the river. We're now going to take our study upstream, and we're going to gather the same types of data further up in the upper course of the river, in order for us to be able to prove and analyse how a river's course changes as we move downstream.
Upstream!
Upstream!
Upstream! Okay, so we've been at the upper course of the river for some time now, and our other geographers have been taking notes, looking at the differences between the sites. We've shown you how you can measure shoulders. We can already see the width is narrower, the boulders are bigger, it's steeper, it's faster flowing, and we can record all of this information. We've shown you how we can do that. Claire,
Have you
is
done
that a field sketch?
Yeah, field sketch done. Good work. I've got the photos.
Hi! We're in Aviemore!
A popular tourist spot in the heart of the Cairngorms National Park. So, what could you possibly do your AV on in Aviemore?
Aviemore, the different things that you can focus your study on could be environmental quality,
Land use.
Tourism! Okay, so we're back in Aviemore, we're in a busy retail area, we've got outdoor shops, we've got restaurants, bars, and lots of tourists, more importantly. And we're going to develop our themes. You're going to have to come up with a question, but we're going to follow that theme, and we're going to have a question that you're going to work on. And the question is there a relationship between the land use and sphere of influence of Aviemore? As part of your AVU, you're going to have to think about what the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats are to your project. You're going to have to write it up eventually, and you're going to have to consider, what sort of things were difficult. When you write it down, you could even write down that it was raining, it was pouring, it was difficult to do field sketches. These are things you've got to build into your project. And since we're doing the urban study, we're going to look at some of the ways you can gather data. We'll look at an example where you are collecting information from people on the street. Maybe people don't always want to speak to you, and that's something you can put in your write-up. So we'll go to that now.
The method that I'm using to gather data is by interviewing people on the street.
Sorry, I'm really busy.
Hi. Okay. I'm about a unit for school. Okay. Can I just ask you a few questions?
Yeah, that's fine.
So, whereabouts have you come from?
Five? Body five, yeah.
And why have you come to Aviemore? What's the reason for you travelling to Aviemore?
Well, I come for the skiing. Yeah, the skiing. I like having a wee look round the shops. Just a generally nice place to be at this time of year. So, yeah.
And how did you travel to Aviemore?
By car.
By car. Did you drive?
My husband drove. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. No problem. See you later.
So as you saw, Kimberly had a little bit of difficulty getting some answers out of people. You have to interview. The more people you interview, the better your project's going to be. Another thing that you could do is you could map the land use in Aviemore. And to do that, we need a large-scale map. And I'm just going to colour in everything that's a hotel or a restaurant in one colour. And then there's a lot of shops. Another thing we could do here in Aviemore is a traffic survey. See how many cars are passing at a point. Okay, but on a more serious note, you could do an actual traffic survey. Remember to think about things like the time of day, the length of your study, and what you're actually counting.
So, the AVU, we've had a look at the physical environment and we looked at our river case study. And now we've been to Aviemore and we've had a look around, we've looked at some gathering techniques. But to wrap it up, what was it? It was fun. Okay, so the best part about your geography AVU is to go out, get out and find your own data. Way more fun, way more interesting. It's better than sitting in front of a computer all day, okay? But to build on that, we need to move on. You need to work out the next stages, the processing of that information you've collected and the analysing of it. And we're going to go on and look at these techniques. Hi! We're back at the base!
Okay, so we have been out in the field all morning. We have showed you and helped you figure out ways to pick out themes for things that you can do in Aviemore. From that, we've helped you formulate and generate some questions that you can use for your AVU. And we've also showed you different ways in which you can gather your data. So what we're now going to do is we're now going to focus on how we can take the data, record the data, present the data, analyse the data and draw conclusions.
Okay, so what we've got here is we've got a table of velocity of the river that we were on today. So as you can see, we've got various numbers, okay? So tables are quite good for a large data set. It's a good way of compiling a large data set of information. So that's what we've done there to record our velocity. So now we've got a cross-section of our river that we're on today. A cross-section is a good way of showing the width and the depth of a river across the channel.
Okay, so other ways you can process and present your data, we've got a sphere of influence map. So we've mapped the distance people travelled into AVU. We've recorded it as percentages, but you can record it as actual numbers if you prefer. We've also got a bar graph, which gives a clear visual representation. It makes comparisons easy. We've recorded the number of vehicles and different types of vehicles. Finally, we've got a land use map where we've simply shaded the different land uses, different colours. Again, makes the clear visual representation. And finally, we've written a list of other suggestions you can use. It's not an exhaustive list, but it should give you some ideas of what you can use in your AVU study.
Okay, that's us done for today. We've shown you various ways that you could approach your added value unit.
Human and physical.
The main thing is remember to enjoy your added value unit.
Now it's over to you. Good luck.
Good luck. Merry Christmas!